I'd like to just bring Ellen into this because Ellen is a mother of an Ethiopian daughter. And I believe, Ellen, you said that you were raising your daughter Jewish. What's been your experience? What have you seen? What have you noticed?
Well, we live in Brooklyn, so we live in a place where there are there's lots of diversity, both in our synagogue, synagogue community, which is a Reform community, and both families that look like us and others. So there is similar to Harriet's experience, there are a number of families of mixed races and blended families. So I think that made it easier for Hikma, although at 16, she wasn't 6, but she's kind of explored it and said, I don't believe in any organized religion. And we have a wonderful rabbi who I said, well, go talk to the rabbi, and she said, well, I don't really believe in organized religions, and I don't think I believe in God. And the rabbi said, well, that's okay. I'm not sure I do either, but you need to believe in being kind. And you need to keep learning. So she's going through an exploration phase, but she did get bat mitzvahed and she knows a lot of the rituals and practices. And I only care that she's learned how to ask questions and, some of the things that I think, Harriet, you mentioned about the question sometimes in the journey is more important than where it takes you. And so, but her experience has been one of a life of, certainly racism and bias, a lot of microaggressions and things like that because of the color of her skin, but also coupled with a welcoming and inclusive community in the synagogue. However, there are always people, regardless of the color of your skin, who regardless of how welcoming the rest of the community is, have racism and bias against anybody, so I think that'll be her experience, but she looks past that. And I think, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Tobie. Yes.
I was fortunate enough to have gone to the Jews of Color Mishpacha Shabbaton, and as a white ally, and this Shabbaton was held over a long weekend, and we were able to break up into different groups, and there were several opportunities for white allies to congregate and talk about supporting Jews of color and being a true advocate and a true accomplice in supporting the Jews of color's diverse experiences. And so there were several white allies that are the parents of children of color that were there, hoping to broaden their own knowledge of what it feels like to be a Jew of color in a primarily white, in the United States, religion. And I invite you, Ellen, to follow Harriet's work and her organization, and to be part of this movement, perhaps with your daughter, because I am not affiliated with any synagogue and haven't been for quite some time, since I was a child. But the experience that I had in these 3 days was like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. I said, this is Judaism. This is it. The caring, the love, we have that kind of community, and I definitely will follow Harriet's work. I know you have your experience, but this is I'm going to tell you, this is an experience like you've never experienced. I'm willing to go to court on it. It's
right.
Extraordinary. And because of this, I am now connected with several Jews of color that I met through this experience. and having a meal, sharing experiences, sharing knowledge. I mean, again, I never would have met many of the people that I did meet except through Harriet's work in bringing us all of us together. Internationally, extraordinary.
Maria?
So I was just, listening to everybody and preparing for the show, I was thinking, and I didn't realize it until, Toni, you presented this as a topic. I actually know more Jews of color than I do Jews who are white. And for me, it was like a oh wow moment, right? There is a Black woman rabbi up in Manhattan. She's at the West End Synagogue. And one of my white Jewish colleagues had introduced me to her. We had a wonderful time, wonderful conversation. One of my dear childhood friends is in an interracial marriage. Her husband is Jewish. Her daughter, she's Black. So her daughter is being raised in both cultures. And then I have cousins. And so when I was, not that you want to do the numbers, but I'm like, okay, wow, this is a predominantly white religion in the US. But I actually know more people of color that are in part of that religion than I do white folks.
Yeah. And I got just a little confused with a comment that Ellen's rabbi made. And I just need to know, meaning the Jewish faith, you believe in God, right? I mean, that's like a, isn't that where it all started?
The primary.
Yeah, right. Don't we believe? Isn't that where it all starts?
She does believe in God, but I think that the questioning, when Abraham questions God and then wrestles, the wrestling with God as a primary tenet of asking questions. And my daughter is asking, when she's turned 13, 14, when any 13 and 14-year-old is questioning their own identity, especially one that has gone through trauma and is coming into a different life. And, so there's all these questions that any teenager is asking, and especially about religion. And then she started reading about Taoism and Taoism. And so she's going through all of that. And then you have COVID and everyone is asking questions. Am I ever going to see my friends again? Kind of thing. So, and the rabbi was just playing along to some extent, but quite honestly, my rabbi is a gay white woman married to a gay Black woman. They have a daughter. And then they merge synagogues with a gay Asian woman who's the head rabbi. So our whole community is very diverse and fairly progressive. So there's a lot of questioning going on, although they all practice their faith in different ways, but there's a lot of ritual. It is not the same, at its core, it's the same ritual, although it is, I would say, a little more gender fluid and then the hidebound orthodoxy in terms of the way it's practiced. But I would say that there are many members of our community that are Jews of color and in our synagogue.
One thing that you said to Harriet in our conversations prior to this one was that you wanted to see more people of color or Jews of color in leadership spaces in Judaism. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I also want to just point out really quickly that the Jews of Color Initiative did an amazing study this year where they did interviews with 1,000 Jews of color across the country. And what we found out is that about 80% of Jews of color who participated in this study had experienced racism in Jewish institutions. And yet Jews of color also felt a deep connection to their Judaism, and it was a central tenet in their lives. I do believe that there are absolutely at least 1 million Jews of color in the United States, but I don't know that those numbers are represented at levels of leadership. How are we making decisions about Jewish institutions? How are we making decisions in our synagogues, in our Jewish community centers? And I think that the next step is moving forward to ensure that Jewish institutions have leaders who are Jews of color, who are sharing their experiences, who are not there just to be a person, so ticking off the box, oh yes, We're diverse because we have an insert blank on our board. That's not enough. It's not enough just to be talk. It has to be walk. And I think that as Jews of color, we experience some difficulties being accepted by our people of color communities. Oh my gosh, you're a Jew, but Jews are white. Are you even Black if you're Jewish? And then on the other side, we have the Jewish community saying, oh my goodness, you're Jewish? Well, how did that happen? Right? And so figuring out a way to take the moments of joy, the moments of resilience from the coming together of those two stories, and then having that inform the leadership so that when Ellen's daughter comes back at 27 and says, you know, I'm a secular Jew. I don't know that I believe in X and Y and Z, but I want to have a community because I had a rabbi who told me I just needed to be kind. Where can I find a place in Judaism that's kind to everyone? And we want a Judaism that can offer that. If I can help to make that happen, I will.
Harriet, I'm so glad you said that, because one of the things I was thinking as everybody was talking was that, you know, racism in religion is not a phenomenon, but there is a unique, I don't want to say niche, because niche kind of gives a good kind of vibe, right? But there's a unique experience, I think, for Jewish people of color in Judaism, because neither side really sees them as being, you know, included as part of the religion. So thank you for adding that.
And you know, this should have been a two-parter. So Harriet, we may have to have you come back on because unfortunately that's all the time we have for this episode. But
I can't wait.
We gotta have you back on. I should have made this a two-parter because this is so interesting, especially when I think of the neighborhood I live in. I live in Crown Heights with a Lubavitcher, you know, and I've seen one Black Lubavitcher. And I wanted to pull this young man aside and say, what is it like for you? You know, and then one of my friends said it can't be easy, and they were Lubavitcher. So, you know, we've got to have you back, Harriet. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode of Brooklyn Savvy. But thank you so much, Dr. Harriet Wims, and to all the Brooklyn Savvy panelistas. And we'll see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.